Hi, Standard 9. Let's continue. Here's your English facilitator back with you once again to continue with our short stories from Treasure Chest. And today we are going to do a story by Rabindranath Tagore, who was known as Rabindranath Thakur in the place where he was born, which was Calcutta, of course. And all of you all are already introduced to him in your history topics also. We all know about Rabindranath Tagore. So let's begin with the short story, The Homecoming. And first we'll read about the author. Most of it you all would be knowing, but let's read about the author. Oh yeah, by the way, that book which you see behind me at the back is it's the autobiography of APJ Abdul Kalam, a former president of India. It is The Wings of Fire, and this book, Wings of Fire, is a part of your syllabus for the internal assessment for book review. In case your school teachers do give you an internal assessment, or even if they don't give you that for the internal assessment, it has been recommended by the ICSE board that you read it. And so my recommendation to you also is that whether you do it for your marks or not, please do read The Wings of Fire by our former President of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Okay, so let's start with The Homecoming. The Homecoming, about the author. Rabindranath Tagore, born 1861 to 1941, was a Bengali poet, writer, playwright, composer, philosopher, social reformer, and painter who won the Nobel Prize in Literature for 1913. So that is when he got the Nobel Prize in Literature. Of course, there is one information which I would like to share with you all, which is not written over here, but most of you would be knowing. He was knighted by the British government in the year 1915. That means he was given the title of Sir in the year 1915. However, he returned this title to protest against the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Okay, so that is one more thing about that we should be knowing about him. And he was given the Nobel Prize for what? The Nobel Prize for his book Gitanjali. Okay, and we used to earlier teach a poem, Where the Mind is Without Fear, in our ICSE syllabus, and that is the poem, that is the book Gitanjali, for which he was given the Nobel Prize in Literature. Okay, now in The Homecoming we have a universal theme. We have the universal themes of adolescence, neglect, responsibility, love, and isolation. The story is narrated in the third person by an unnamed narrator. It is the story of Fatiq Chakravarti, whose boyish mischief leads to his being sent away to Kolkata to live with his uncle, which was earlier known as Calcutta. So in the story, you will find a mention of the word Calcutta. Now we call it as Kolkata. To live with his uncle. Tagore pierces the heart of the reader with his depiction of homesickness, rejection, and isolation. The boy's longing to return to wide open spaces of his village home is metaphorically granted in the poignant closing lines of the story. Both the title and the last line echo this longing. Okay, that he desperately wanted to be back home at his village. So let's begin with The Homecoming. And of course, the style of the story is in third person. And at some places we find that Tagore has used dialogues. He has used dialogues to make it more effective. Okay, we'll see it when we read it. Okay, I'll tell you when it comes. Now, Fatiq Chakravarti was a ringleader. Ringleader is a leader in mischief. He was a ringleader among the boys of the village. A new mischief got into his head. There was a heavy log lying on the mud flat of the river. Mud flat is a muddy land which is next to the river, waiting to be shaped into a mast for a boat. He decided that they should all work together to shift the log by main force from its place and roll it away. The owner of the log would be very angry and surprised, and they would all enjoy the fun. Everyone seconded the proposal, and it was carried out unanimously. So he decided that we are going to shift this log away, and the owner will get angry, and it will be fun to watch his anger. But just as the fun was about to begin, and everyone, all of his friends, because he was a ringleader, he was a leader in mischief, so all his friends agreed and unanimously they said, okay, we'll remove that. But just as the fun was about to begin, Makhan, Fatique's younger brother, sauntered up. Sauntered up means he walked up slowly and silently and sat down on the log in front of them all without a word. The boys were puzzled for a moment. He was pushed rather timidly by one of the boys and told to get up, but he remained quite unconcerned. So Fatique's brother Makhan has come and he's sitting on the log so that they can't move the log. He appeared like a young philosopher meditating on the futility of games. Meditating means thinking deeply about the futility of the games. Fatigue was furious. Makhan, he cried, if you don't get down this minute, I'll crash you. Means I'm going to hit you if you don't get down from that piece of log immediately. Futility means pointlessness. Makhan only moved to a more comfortable position. Like how brothers, they will do what they want to do. Now, if Fatigue was to keep his regal dignity before the public, it was clear that he ought to carry out his threat, the threat which he had given to his brother. But his courage failed him at the crisis. His fertile brain, however, rapidly seized upon a new maneuver. New maneuver is a new clever plan, which would discomfit, means which would annoy his brother and afford his followers an added amusement. He gave the word of command to roll the log and Makhan over together. Makhan heard the order and made it a point of honor to stick on, but he overlooked the fact, like those who attempt earthly fame in other matters, that there was peril in it. So Makhan took it as his ego problem. He said, no, I will not move only from here. I am not going to move from here. So he stuck over there without realizing that there was a great danger involved in that and the log would roll along with him down the river. The boys began to heave at the log with all their might, calling out, 1, 2, 3, go! At the word go, the log went, and with it, Makhan's philosophy, glory, and all. So everything went at the word go. All the other boys shouted themselves hoarse with delight, but Fatigue was a little frightened. He knew what was coming. And sure enough, Makhan rose from Mother Earth, blind as fate, and screaming like the Furies. He rushed at Fatigue and scratched his face and beat him and kicked him, and then went crying home. The first act of the drama was over. Okay, now over here, if you have noticed one thing, children, that the word fates is given with a capital F. Okay, so by now you would have done Julius Caesar Act 2 Scene 3. In that we have a description of fate. Who are these fates? These fates are these three goddesses of destiny who rule the destiny of, who govern the human destinies. Okay, so if you have read it, you'll know, and if you haven't read it and you don't know, you can refer to my module of Julius Caesar Act 2 Scene 3, in which I've given a detailed explanation of who these fates were along with their names and what they used to do. So please refer to that. Okay, so he rose as if he was blind as fate. They are supposed to be blind. Okay, and screaming like the Furies. Now, who are these Furies? These Furies are also three goddesses. They are three goddesses of who live in hell. Okay, they live in hell and they are the goddesses of vengeance, justice and retribution. So they are the goddesses of vengeance, justice and retribution, and they come out from hell and they relentlessly punish those people who break moral or legal codes. Okay, so anybody who breaks a moral or a legal code, then they are punished by these Furies. Okay, so the first act of the drama was over. And now we come with Fatigue wiping his face. Now children, I want to tell you all one thing. I'm really very sorry because this entire module has been recorded by me at 2 different times, and I have recorded the later part on an earlier date, and today is what I'm doing, the beginning part. So if you suddenly see a change of dress, please don't get flabbergasted and don't be worried. It is just something that I have done because I have not been able to record it at one shot. So let's continue with Fatigue wiped his face. That much for the fate and furies. Fatigue wiped his face and sat down on the edge of a sunken barge on the riverbank and began to chew a piece of grass. A boat came up. A boat came up to the landing, and a middle-aged man with grey hair, a dark moustache, stepped on the shore. He saw the boy sitting there doing nothing and asked him where the Chakravartis lived. Fatigue went on chewing the grass and replied, "Over there." But it was quite impossible to tell where he pointed. The stranger asked him again. He swung his legs to and fro on the side of the barge and said, "Go and find out," and continued to chew the grass as before. But now a servant came down from the house and told Fatigue his mother wanted him. Fatigue refused to move, but the servant was the master on this occasion. He took Fatigue up roughly and carried him, kicking and struggling in impotent rage. Impotent rage means an anger which has no effect. Helpless anger is impotent rage. When Fatigue came into the house, his mother saw him. She called out angrily, "So, you have been hitting Makhan again?" Fatigue answered indignantly. Indignantly means annoyingly. "No, I haven't." "Who told you that?" His mother shouted, "Don't tell lies. You have." Fatigue said suddenly, "I tell you I haven't. You ask Makhan." But Makhan thought it best to stick to his previous statement. He said, "Yes, mother, Fatigue did hit me." Fatigue's patience was already exhausted. He could not bear this injustice. He rushed at Makhan and hammered him with the blows. "Take that," he cried, and that, for telling lies." His mother took Makhan's side in a moment and pulled Fatigue away, beating him with her hands. When Fatigue pushed her aside, she shouted, "What? You little villain! Would you hit your own mother?" It was at this critical junction that the grey-haired stranger arrived. He asked what the matter was. Fatigue looked sheepish and ashamed, but when his mother stepped back and looked at the stranger, her anger was changed to surprise, for she recognized her brother and cried, "Why, Dada? Where have you come from?" As Dada in Bengali means elder brother. Okay, in Bengali, elder brother is called as Dada. "So why, Dada? Where have you come from?" As she said these words, she bowed to the ground and touched his feet. Her brother had gone away soon after she had married, and he had started business in Bombay. His sister had lost her husband while he was in Bombay. So this person who had asked Fatigue where the Chakravartis live is actually Fatigue's mom's brother. That means Fatigue's maternal uncle. Okay, now we come to know that Fatigue's mother is a widow, and she had been widowed when her brother had gone away, and she had got married and she had started his business in Bombay. See, her brother had gone away soon after she had married, and he had started his business in Bombay. Okay, so his sister had lost her husband while he was in Bombay. So who was in Bombay? Fatigue's maternal uncle was in Bombay, and Fatigue, of course, was in the village. His parents were in the village, and at that time he had lost his father, means his mother had become a widow, and the uncle had not been able to come back at that time, so he has just come back today. Bishambar, now we come to know his name. Bishambar had now come back to Calcutta and had at once made inquiries about his sister. So he came to know Bishambar had come back to Calcutta and made inquiries about his sister. He then hastened to see her as soon as he found out where she was. The next few days were full of rejoicing. The brother had asked after the education of the two boys. So now the maternal uncle has come to stay. So the brother, means his widowed mother, her brother had come, and he asked how are the two boys and what are they doing and everything. And now look at the answer of the mother. Okay. Fatigue. He was told by his sister that fatigue was a perpetual nuisance. Perpetual nuisance means he was perpetual means something that lasts forever. So he said that fatigue was a perpetual nuisance. He was lazy, disobedient and wild, but Makhan was as good as gold, as quiet as a lamb, and very fond of reading. Okay, so here we have two similes, as good as gold and as quiet as a lamb. Mark, mark, mark. These are the two similes used by the author. And very fond of reading. Bishambar kindly offered to take Fatigue off his sister's hands and educate him with his own children in Calcutta. The widowed mother readily agreed. When his uncle asked Fatigue if he would like to go to Calcutta with him, his joy knew no bounds, and he said, "Oh yes, uncle," in a way that made it quite clear that he meant it. Means he was very happy that, oh, I'm getting to leave Kolkata and I'm getting a chance to go away to Bombay. It was an immense relief to the mother to get rid of Fatigue. She had a prejudice against the boy, means she was already biased against the boy, and no love was lost between the two brothers. So even the brothers didn't like each other much. So there was no love lost between them. She was in daily fear that he would either drown Makhan someday in the river, or break his head in a fight, or run him into some danger or other. At the same time, she was somewhat distressed to see Fatigue's extreme eagerness to get away. So even though somewhere in her heart she was happy that Fatigue would be going away, and then she would have to look after only one son, she would not have to worry about Fatigue, and she could look after Makhan very well. But somewhere deep in her heart she had that feeling. She was feeling a little distress, means she was feeling sorry, sort of, that how come my son wants to go away so easily, so aram se. Okay, why is he so eager to get away from me? That is what it means. Fatigue, as soon as all was settled, kept asking his uncle every minute when they were to start. He was on pins and needles all day long with excitement. Pins and needles means he was very excited and lay awake most of the night. He bequeathed to Makhan in perpetuity his fishing rod, his big kite, and his marbles. Indeed, at this time of departure, his generosity towards Makhan was unbounded. So whatever he had, he gave everything to Makhan. Okay, you take everything. When they reached Calcutta, Fatigue made the acquaintance of his aunt for the first time. So first time he saw his aunt. She was by no means pleased with this unnecessary addition to her family. So the aunt was not happy at all because there was an unnecessary addition. She already had children of her own, and now there was this extra boy. She found her own 3 boys. Sorry, children, I've got a bad cough. She found her own 3 boys, quite enough to manage without taking on anyone else, and to bring a village lad of 14 into their midst. So we come to know the age of Fatigue over here. Please underline that he was 14 years of old and the uncle already had 3 children. Into their midst was terribly upsetting. Bishambar should have really thought twice before committing to such an indiscretion. So now she was angry with her husband that why did you have to bring him over here? I already have 3 boys. 1 more boy, and that too boy of 14 in his teenage. Oh my God. In this world of human affairs, there is no worse nuisance than a boy at the age of 14. He is neither ornamental nor useful. It is impossible to shower affection on him as on a little boy, as he is always getting in the way. If he talks with a childish lisp, he is called a baby. If he answers in a grown-up way, he is called impertinent. In fact, any talk at all from him is resented. Then he is at the unattractive growing age. He grows out of his clothes with indecent haste. His voice grows hoarse and breaks and quavers. His face grows suddenly angular and unsightly. It is easy to excuse the shortcomings of early childhood, but it is hard to tolerate even unavoidable lapses in the boy of 14. The lad himself becomes painfully self-conscious. When he talks with elderly people, he is either unduly forward or else so unduly shy that he appears ashamed of his very existence. Now, children, if you mark this entire paragraph which I have read off to you, starting from in this world of human affairs to his very existence, this is a description given by Tagore to us of a boy in his adolescent time. Like, when the voice is cracking. So if girls are facing adolescent problems, same way even boys are also facing. So it is that period that the author has described in great detail, when the voice is cracking and they don't know what to talk, they don't know whether they should talk, whether they should act like grown-ups or they should act with a childish lisp. Whatever they do, they are going to be criticized. Okay, so he is introducing us to the problems that a male faces when he is reaching his adolescence, okay, in his teens. Please mark that, okay? And then you mark it in the margin with a line, and then you write over there, okay, that these are the adolescent signs which have been given to us. Yet it is at this very age when I hope you are understanding. It's a very simple story. Yet it is at this very age when in his heart of hearts a young lad most craves for recognition and love. So it is at this age when this boy of 14 or in his early teens, when he's just cracking, at that time his heart yearns for love and recognition. He wants his mother or his father to recognize him, to be proud of him at every moment. That is what they yearn the most. So the lad most craves for recognition and love, and he becomes a devoted slave of anyone who shows him consideration. But none dare openly love him, for that would be regarded as undue indulgence, and therefore bad for the boy. So, what with scolding and chiding, he becomes very much like a stray dog that has lost his master. So, if you do not give him that love and you do not give him that recognition at that age when they are in their teens, if you miss out on that, then the boy is lost from your hand and he becomes like a stray dog roaming on the roads. For a boy of 14, his own home, is the only paradise. To live in a strange house with strange people is a little short of torture, while the height of bliss is to receive the kind looks of women and never to be slighted by them. So for poor Fatigue, this was an absolute torture, because he was removed away from his village and he was brought to a city where nobody actually liked him. It was anguish to Fatigue to be the unwelcome guest in his aunt's house, despised by this elderly woman and slighted on every occasion. If she ever asked him to do anything for her, he would be so overjoyed that he would overdo it. So whenever she told him to do something, he used to be so happy. Oh, I want to please her, that he would overdo whatever he was asked to do, and again she would scold him. Okay. So if she ever asked him to do anything for her, he would be so overjoyed that he would overdo it. And then she would tell him not to be so stupid, but to get on with his lessons. The cramped atmosphere of neglect in his aunt's house oppressed Fatigue so much that he felt he could hardly breathe. He wanted to go out into the open sky and fill his lungs and breathe freely. But there was no open country to go to. Surrounded on all sides by Calcutta houses and walls, he would dream night after night of his village home and long to be back over there. So whenever his aunt used to scold him, he used to get very upset because there was nobody to praise him. So his aunt was one of the biggest torturers for him, because she never praised him. In fact, she never liked him. So he was an unwelcome guest at their house. Okay. So every day in the night, while sleeping, he would dream of his own house in the village, where his house was in the village. But there was no open country over here. He remembered the glorious meadow where he used to fly his kite all day long, the broad river banks where he would wander about the livelong day, singing and shouting for joy, the narrow brook where he could go and dive and swim at any time he liked. He thought of his band of boy companions over whom he was despot, and above all, the memory of that tyrant mother of his, who had such a prejudice against him, occupied him day and night. A kind of physical love like that of the animals, a longing to be in the presence of the one who is loved, an inexpressible wistfulness during absence, a silent cry of the inmost heart for the mother, like the lowing of a calf in the twilight. This love, which was almost an animal instinct, agitated the shy, nervous, lean, uncouth, and ugly boy. No one could understand it, but it preyed upon his mind continually. So Tagore has very well depicted to us the plight of fatigue, and look at the adjectives that Tagore has used for him in the last second line, where he has said agitated the shy, nervous, lean means thin, uncouth, and ugly. So no one could understand him over there, and he missed his own house and his own friends and the countryside where there was a river where he could go and take a dip whenever he felt like going. There was nobody to stop him, and he was liked over there most of the time, by his friends at least. There was no backward boy in the whole school than Fatih. Now, as compared to the countryside over here in Calcutta, in the city, at that time it was called Calcutta. Now, of course, we call it Kolkata, but at that time it was Calcutta. So the spelling, when you write your answers, you have to use the word Calcutta. There was no more backward boy in the whole school than Fatigue. He gaped and remained silent when the teacher asked him a question, and like an overladen ass, patiently suffered all the blows that came down on his back. When other boys were out at play, he stood wistfully by the window and gazed at the roofs of the distant houses. And if by chance he espied children playing on the open terrace of any roof, his heart would ache with longing. So whenever he would see any of the boys standing on a rooftop and playing, he would feel like as if he wanted to go with them, to be under the open sky and to play with them. That is what he wanted. One day he summoned up all his courage and asked his uncle, "Uncle, when can I go home?" His uncle answered, "Wait till the holidays come." But the holidays would not come till November, and there was a long time still to wait. One day, Fatigue lost his lesson book. Even with the help of books, he found it very difficult indeed to prepare his lesson, and now it was impossible. Day after day, the teacher would cane him unmercifully. His condition became so abjectly miserable that even his cousins were ashamed to own him. They began to jeer and insult him more than the other boys. So now even his cousins were getting angry with him because he was not doing his lessons, but he had lost his book. So it was just impossible for him to do his work. So everybody used to jeer him and insult him, and above all, his cousins were the people who jeered him the most. To jeer somebody means to mock somebody. He went to his aunt at last and told her that he had lost his book. His aunt pursed her lips in contempt and said, "You great, clumsy country lout! How can I afford with all my family to buy you new books 5 times a month?" That night, on his way back from school, Fatigue had a bad headache with a fit of shivering. He felt he was going to have an attack of malarial fever. His one great fear was that he would be a nuisance to his aunt. So at that time when he was returning, he had a headache. Now these are the physical illness that we have been shown, that he already had a headache and he began to shiver. So he thought that he was having malaria. But in spite of the thought that he would have malaria, the thought which actually troubled him was that if I get malaria, if I fall sick, I will become a greater nuisance for my aunt. And what happened? The next morning he was nowhere to be seen. All searches in the neighborhood proved futile. The rain had been pouring in torrents all night, and those who went out in search of the boy got drenched through to the skin. At last, Bishbambar asked police help from the police. So Fatiq was lost. He came to know that he might be having malaria, as a result of which he decides to run away because he doesn't want to be a nuisance to his aunt and his uncle and all the neighbors and everybody. Nobody could find him, so ultimately they had to take the help from the police, and they told him that he is not there. Please could you help us to find him. At the end of the day, a police van stopped at the door before the house. It was still raining and the streets were all flooded. Two constables brought out Fatiq in their arms and placed him before Bishambar. He was wet through from head to foot, muddy all over, his face and eyes flushed red with fever, and his limbs all trembling. Bishambar carried him in his arms and took him to the inner apartments, because ultimately he was his maternal uncle, isn't it? So he carried him in his arms and took him to the room inside. Okay. When his wife saw him, she exclaimed, "What a heap of trouble this boy has given us. Hadn't you better send him home?" So now the aunt is saying, just send him home. He's so troublesome. Why do you want him over here? Fatiq heard her words and sobbed out loud. "Uncle, I was just going home, but they dragged me back again." So in spite of that deliria that he was facing, he was already so delirious and he already had a fever, but he wanted to show his aunt that he agreed to what she was saying. So he said, "Uncle, I was just going home, but they brought me back. I didn't want to come back." The fever rose very high, and all that night the boy was delirious. Bishambar brought in a doctor. Fatiq opened his eyes, flushed with fever, and he looked up to the ceiling and said vacantly, "Uncle, have the holidays come yet? May I go home?" Now just see, in spite of that fever, the only thought he has in his mind is, "I want to go home." Bisambar wiped the tears from his own eyes and took Fatiq's lean and burning hands in his own and sat by him through the night. The boy began again to mutter. At last his voice became excited. "Mother," he cried, "don't beat me like that. Mother, I am telling the truth." So now he is recollecting what was the last incident with his mother that he had had. You remember the last thing that we read was that his mother had begun to beat him because Makhan had said that Fatiq had hurt him. So his mother was beating him. So in that state of, because of that high fever and all, the fever had gone to his brain. In that state, he's saying, "Mother, please don't beat me. I have not done anything. I'm telling you the truth." Okay. The next day, Fatiq became conscious for a short time. He turned his eyes about the room. He turned his eyes means he looked around the room as if expecting someone to come. So as if he was expecting, so he began to look all around that has somebody come. At last, with an air of disappointment, his head sank back on the pillow. He turned his face to the wall with a deep sigh. Bishambar knew his thoughts and bending down his head whispered, "Fatiq, I have sent for your mother." The day went by. The doctor said in a troubled voice that the boy's condition was very critical. Fatiq began to cry out, "By the mark! 3 fathoms! By the mark! 4 fathoms! By the mark!" Now, what is the meaning of by the mark? Write down. By the mark is how sailors measure the depth of the water. So, when you are sailing in a ship, you measure the depth of the water. The sailors at that time, they will say by the mark. Okay, so he's saying, "By the mark, 3 fathoms. By the mark, 4 fathoms." He had heard the sailor on the river stream calling out the mark on the plumb line. Now he himself was plumbing an unfathomable sea. So, because he had heard this when he was staying in his own house at the countryside. Okay, so he remembers that. So he's saying this. Later in the day, Fatiq's mother burst into the room like a whirlwind and began to toss from side to side and moan and cry in a loud voice. Bishambar tried to calm her agitation, but she flung herself on the bed and cried, "Fatiq, my darling, my darling!" Fatigue stopped his restless movements for a moment. His hands ceased beating up and down. And he said, "Eh?" Means what? Eh? Like he was shocked to hear that voice. Fatigue stopped his restless movements for a moment. His hands ceased beating up and down. He said, "Eh?" The mother cried again, "Fatigue, my darling, my darling." Fatigue very slowly turned his head, and without seeing anybody, so he has not taken note of his mother, he has only heard her voice. It is only the voice of the mother that has come in his ears, and he is saying, "Mother, the holidays have come." So the minute he heard his mother's voice, he realized as if the holidays have come. So he says, "Mother, the holidays have come." Okay, now so it's a sad sort of a story, and of course you will remember that this has this plot of the story. The story ends with a cliffhanger. Okay, what do we mean by a cliffhanger? A cliffhanger is used by authors where they leave the story at a climax. Okay, they leave the story at a climax. They do not conclude the story. They leave the conclusion for the reader to see. The reader has to think about the conclusion. The story is left at the climax. Okay, so here we are left with that thought. The last line, "Mother, the holidays have come." So now it is up to the reader to decide. You can decide whether you want Fatigue to go back home or you want Fatigue's mother to go away. Most of the critics of this story have defined it as that Fatigue has died. That is the way they have described it. But as far as I am concerned, I would like to critically appreciate the story in such a way, because Rabindranath Tagore has left the story with a cliffhanger. It depends on how you want to interpret it. Okay, I don't want to leave on a sad mood. So we reach the climax, but the conclusion is not there. That is called a cliffhanger. Okay, so with that, we've read the story and I've explained it to you in detail, and I hope okay, I'll give you all a few notes. Please take it down quickly, stop the video and start taking the screenshots. I'm giving it all to you so that we can just read and understand together, and you don't have to pause the video all the time again and again. Okay, so we've got, I think that was the last one. Yes, so I've given you all the, you can pause it at one shot and you can take all of them, and let's begin by understanding what it means. It's very simple. I don't think there's anything difficult. If there is, I will explain. Okay, The Homecoming by Rabindranath Tagore from 1861 to 1941, and the rest of his introduction I've already given to you. The title, The Homecoming, is quite appropriate because the protagonist Fatigue has several different crossroads in the story that involve coming home, symbolically and literally. Okay, what is the meaning of homecoming? Coming home. So this title is symbolic also and it is literal also. Literal in the way that Fatigue gets a chance to come home. He comes home 3 times. It is 3 times that Fatigue comes home. Which are the 3 times? We'll see in the notes. I'm just explaining it to you that he comes home 3 times. That is why it is called as The Homecoming, and it's an apt and justified title. Okay, the first homecoming. First is the time when his brother got injured in a scuffle and Fatiq knew that he would get unjust punishment. Fatiq was forcibly taken home by his servant, though it was not a homecoming because he longed for the loving embrace of his mother. So, on a symbolic level, because he wanted the love of his mother, so on a symbolic level it was not a homecoming, but on a literal level, that he came home, he was brought home. Okay, so on a literal level it is a homecoming, but on a symbolic level it is not a homecoming because he got no love from his mother. Then the second instance, when Fatiq tried to run away from his uncle's house at Calcutta, and when two constables brought him home completely drenched with his body burning with fever. This was the worst homecoming, where he was not liked at all. So this was also a homecoming for him, where he was brought back by the constables, and it was a homecoming literally, but it was not a symbolic homecoming because he was not loved by anyone. The third one was when his mother came to see him. So he has not come home, but the fact that his mother came to see him shows that it is a homecoming, because his mother has come. Okay, so the third one was when his mother came to see him at Calcutta in his critical condition. All he could say was, "Mother, the holidays have come." It was the first time his mother had shown him affection and love, though it was a little late. Fatiq's longing to return to his village and his mother's embrace symbolizes his deep-rooted desire for love and acceptance. His dying wish was to be reunited with his mother, which is finally fulfilled, signifying his ultimate homecoming, not in the physical sense, but also as a return to the love of his mother in the final moments. Please add over there, but also as a return to the love. Please add the word "the", to the love of his mother in his final moments. Did you all add? Did you? Okay. So, but also as a return to the love of his mother in his final moments, because his final moments have come, and even though he has not physically gone home, the fact that his mother has come back with all the love and she is giving him all the love, that is what he yearned for, that is what his heart always wanted, and he has got that. So that is the actual homecoming. Okay, like I told you, it's a cliffhanger, so you can interpret, you can give it whatever conclusion you want, but the conclusion expected, most of the teachers, and what is expected of you is to say that he has passed away, he has died. The story begins in a village and moves to Calcutta. The setting is revealed when Fatiq moves to his maternal uncle's house. Here, a comparison has been made between the urban city and the beautiful countryside. He feels suffocated in his uncle's house with no open spaces in the village. There was a glorious meadow where he used to fly kites all day long. There was a small stream in which he used to dive and swim. Also in the village, he was the ringleader of his band of companions, but in the city, he has only been bullied. The setting of the play is important. The setting plays an important role in shaping the character's emotions. Please add the S. The setting plays an important role in shaping the character's emotions, highlighting the difference in urban and rural areas, because the setting only tells you that the city is without love and the rural area has got more love, showcasing the struggle of a young boy caught between the two worlds of the city and the rural, the village. Then we come to the themes. Rabindranath Tagore deals with the universal themes of adolescence, neglect, isolation, love, and misunderstandings. So he deals with these 5 themes. Okay. Now, first one, mother's love. Fatiq is a fatherless child who, though only 14, was expected to be the man of the house as he was the eldest male member. His mother never understood his growing up and thought him to be a lazy, disobedient, and wild. After falling severely sick, his mother did come to see him but was unable to revive his dying senses. However, the fact that she rushed to him underlines the inherent love between a mother and her son. Then we come to isolation and alienation. Removed from his familiar environment and placed in an unwelcoming household, Fatigue's constant struggle to adapt and his feeling of being out of place underlines the themes of isolation and alienation, because he is being removed from his village, isn't it? So he is constantly trying, that boy of 14 who is already facing a lot of trouble within himself because he is growing, and along with the problems of adolescence which boys face, at the same time he is also facing a new environment, and an environment which is very hostile, an environment which doesn't like him, which doesn't appreciate him, which has not accepted him, and therefore the isolation. Okay, now childhood and adolescence, that is the third theme that Tagore has given us. Tagore has made an interesting observations on a boy of 14. Puberty and teenage are times when children are in a state of confusion due to severe physical and mental changes. Fatigue did not get the love he wanted at home, and neither at his uncle's house. He got no acceptance from his peers in the city. Through the character of Fatigue and the challenges he faces, the theme of adolescence and puberty has been brought out well by the author. The next theme is the contrast between a country life and the city life. The descriptions give a vivid image of the countryside with its beautiful, glorious meadows, river banks, etc., and that of a city with its walls on all sides. So, what I made you mark in your textbook, those are the descriptions, the difference between a countryside and a city. Now, I have just used 2 or 3 examples. If you want, you can pick up more examples and put them in inverted commas when you're writing your answer. So, this is also a theme. And the theme also, one is a description. Okay, now what is the contrast between the country life and city life? One, of course, is the description. The second thing is that he was a ringleader amongst his friends in the village, whose every proposal would be accepted unanimously. So in the village he was a ringleader, and every proposal was accepted unanimously. Nobody dared to argue with him because they loved him so much. He was so well accepted by the people over there, and would be accepted unanimously. He found himself being jeered at and insulted by his own cousins, making him feel like a stray dog in the city. So in the city he was not accepted. His own cousins jeered him, and that made him feel as if he was a stray dog. Okay, so when you write about the theme of contrast between country life and city life, you have to write 2 points. Don't only write about the environment, about the nature. You also write about his personal environment of being uprooted from his village and being tried to be planted again in a city. It is very sad, when you are uprooted from the place where you have settled down, and suddenly you are taken to a new place, and there you don't get the support you expect, so you don't settle there also. So that is exactly what has happened to Fatigue. Okay, and this is what Tagore has dealt with in his in this story with us. Rabindranath Tagore has given us beautiful poems. We used to do a poem called Where the Mind is Without Fear. I don't know if you all have heard about it. You must have heard about it. He was given the Nobel Prize in Literature, like I told you. In literature, he got the Nobel Prize in 1913. So in 1913, when he got the Nobel Prize for his Gitanjali, and his Gitanjali was translated by himself. There was no other translator. He himself translated it, and in that we have Where the Mind is Without Fear. That poem we used to do with the ICSE students earlier. So that's a beautiful poem. Children, do read it whenever you get time. So that much about Rabindranath Tagore, and that much about the story Homecoming, and I hope you all have understood it well. And if there is any problem and you haven't understood it, please do go through the module again and again till you understand it, because I have discussed every single point that is essential for you to be able to answer your papers. No matter what question comes to you, you will be able to answer, because each point has been discussed in detail. The only thing is that I want you all to go through the module again and again, because I have not given any reading of the story. I have read and explained together so as to save up on the time. Okay, so then see you all again in my next module, and with the homecoming I end this module today.